basically in terms of like programmatically, what we have going on with the respite bed is we have 2 full-time staff who are here to staff the whole night through. And basically, like Neil said, we the staff get in the van. They're picking up at both McGolrick Park and McCarran Park. And you know, we were talking with the guys about, okay, this is the time we're going to be there. We're going to be there at 9 o'clock, 9:15. If you're not on the van, we're leaving. They go to the next spot. They get the guys that come here. Everyone comes here. The volunteers feed everyone, and then pretty much they set up the beds and go to sleep. We do have, since we do have the 2 staff, every hour we're having staff go out and do rounds on the block. So if you're out and you see someone, it's the guys out here who have the NYC Street to Home logo on. That's what they're checking the block to make sure, you know, none of the guys are like straggling in and trying to get in and keeping them off the block.
And they have the power, they have the power, we don't, to call City Homeless Services. Because they can offer somebody a bed in that shelter, they can offer somebody a bed in Manhattan, in the Bronx, or whatever, if they can find a bed. So if there's another person up on the corner who's not involved with this, who's homeless, and wants shelter, if they interact with them, they're actually a resource to that person to get them out of the street and out of the neighborhood.
Many staff can assess the situation. We have also, you know, as Street to Home, we're out 24/7, just checking on all the boroughs that we're responsible for. So they can easily make a call and say, we've got a guy who wants to go to the shelter. The truck comes around, picks them up, takes them there. Then in the morning, the same thing. Everyone packs up. We drop them back off in the parks. People go on and do their thing. People who want case management services can come by our office or meet with our staff out in the street. Kind of going with that. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. There's a phone, you know, there's a phone here. So if anyone needs to reach the staff here, they have the phone that's staffed from basically, you know, from 10 o'clock until 6 o'clock in the morning. And then also our outreach teams are always out. They're wide.
Okay, next up. This is Pat McDonald. Pat McDonald is our volunteer coordinator. We have volunteers who actually come an hour before. Is it an hour before? I want to get the facts. And they prepare soup or a meal for the 9 folks. So when they come in, they get fed before they go to bed. And if you want to be a volunteer, you want to help, you want to take, the way this works is we get people who take a night and they cook for 9 people. And they might have the second Tuesday of the month. If you're interested in being part of that, you see her after the meeting. I think they can give you cooking lessons if you need them. But
I can't. I know.
Feel free to check in on that.
Okay, so later on, if anybody wants to volunteer, I'll take your number. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have the City Councilman, Steve Levin, is with us. Steve was the person who responded to the task force and helped us find some money to deal with local folks. I always kid him that it's nice to have an elected official who works for the least among us. I don't think this is a heavy voting block. These 9 guys, we're working on registering them, but we haven't got that far with that yet. But Steve, you want to take a minute and place yourself in the process? He's been very helpful in terms of helping us get the resources to actually staff this rather than just use volunteers.
Thank you, Neil. So first, I just want to thank Neil, who I've known for a long time and has been very dedicated to helping his community in many different roles. He's a guy that I've always known to be straight up and honest and upfront, and always has the interest of the community at heart. And so, you know, in my many interactions and working with him, it's always been the case. So that's just first and foremost. I want to thank Father Mers for opening up his parish hall, not only to this program but to us tonight, and for his really openness. He wants to make sure that everybody is voices are being heard, and that there are concerns that they're being heard, and he's been great to work with, and everybody that's been involved in the task, in doing this task force for the last 5 years or so. So Pat's been great, and Erica Volker is here, and My staff member, my legislative director, Rami Metal, he lives in Greenpoint, I live in Greenpoint, and he's been doing this since before he started working for me. He worked for the previous council member, David Gaskin, and he had been working on this issue. So just to kind of fill in a little bit and supplement what Neil was saying. I live in Greenpoint. I live on Morgan Avenue between Nassau and Driggs. And so every night that I go home, I see, and I actually check up on them, the guys that have made their home underneath the BQE there at the end of Sutton Street. And on nights, it's been actually a very cold winter this winter. And nights where it's really cold, I worry about them because over the last couple of years, around 1 or 2 guys a winter die of hypothermia somewhere in this community. And when I've gotten those calls, that's something that's very distressing to me. I serve on the committee that oversees the Department of Homeless Services on the City Council, so I serve on the General Welfare Committee. And I've had numerous interactions since I took office in 2010 with first Commissioner Robert Hess, and after he left office, with Commissioner Seth Diamond over this particular issue. There are 50,000 homeless people, or close to 50,000 homeless people in New York City every night. In this community, it's a very small population. It's anywhere from 15 to 50 guys. And so I often brought up the issue of what are we doing about this in terms of city resources, and the response was, well, it's small. We have this larger problem, and that's a very small neighborhood-based program or problem, and we don't really. We're not focused on neighborhood-based ways to address the homeless problem in New York City. Common Ground, and Chris does a great job, and everyone at Common Ground really does a fantastic job. There's a man named Doug, who's I think taking a well-deserved vacation this week, but he's here every night, and day and night. I actually don't know when he sleeps because he works 24 hours. But that's been the program that's been out here keeping track of these individuals for as long as I've been in office, and the Homelessness Task Force has met periodically every couple of months, and we want to know what's going on with these individuals, and so that's kind of identifying what the problems that we have in this community. And there, as Neil said, these are not new problems. And you can't live in the community without recognizing that that's an issue. And so the issue that DHS, Department of Homeless Services, came to us and said, look, they do volunteer programs, church-based respite bed volunteer programs throughout the city. So in my district, I have several. I have one on 8th Avenue that's just starting up right now, actually, on 8th Avenue in Garfield Place in Park Slope at Congregation Beth Elohim. They're normally faith-based, so that's a synagogue in Park Slope. One of the nicer blocks in Park Slope, Garfield and 8th, a block away from Prospect Park. They're opening up a respite bed program right now. There's a program run by Brooklyn Heights Synagogue at Grace Church in Brooklyn Heights, also very nice neighborhood. And that traditionally has been a women's program, a women's respite bed program. They actually just switched over to a men's program because the need is greater. But those are quite neighborhood-based programs. And the population that's using that program are coming from Camden, which is just a different neighborhood. Here in Greenpoint, we have guys in the neighborhood that need the services that it wasn't enough a volunteer program wasn't quite enough to address the overall needs, because this is a population that for the most part has severe alcoholism issues, has issues with sometimes their immigration status. There's a lot of distrust that they have of authorities in general, and a volunteer program is not quite equipped to really address that in what we call wraparound services. So the counseling, the thing that you need to build up the trust to get the guys in. Otherwise, you're just going to say, forget it, I'm staying outside. And so finally last year, Commissioner Seth Diamond, agreed that, look, we will actually fund this. We'll actually break our overall traditions at DHS and do a neighborhood-based program. They'll set aside funding that goes mainly to paying for staff, professional staff, common ground staff, to do this. And so I know that we all kind of know where we are in terms of, and Neil went all the way through that, but that's kind of my involvement. As my responsibility as a city council member, knowing that individuals are at risk in my community, in the district that I represent every night, at risk of being freezing, of hypothermia, freezing to death, of being assaulted, all of those things. I felt like I could not allow that to continue and not do something about it, or to do whatever I could to make sure that the city was putting in resources to address the issue. And I think that we have a community that we're all very engaged, and it's a close-knit community, and so this is something that I think we have come together around, and Neil and Pat and Erica and Father Mers have all stepped up and said that this is kind of a collective responsibility. So that's the way that I view it, and it's something that I think that I'm very proud of what we've done here, because I think that it is in fact saving lives and hopefully getting these guys on the road to recovery.